ask around for questions from the people who are attending this session. But to start off, can we have a huge round of applause for the panel who have joined in? Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today at Parul University. And the first set of questions that I would like to proceed with would be open to the entire of the panel. We would request anybody, like either of you, to please address to the people all the questions that I ask. The first question goes like, many provisions are being made in order to increase entrepreneurship in India. In 2022, 283.5 crore Indian rupees were allotted to the Make in India scheme with the hope of promoting entrepreneurship in India. But the benefits remain primarily urban. What, according to you, is the major reason for fewer entrepreneurs in rural India? What can be done to not only boost entrepreneurship in India, but also to retain that?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Yeah? Testing? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I think the question was, what can be done to increase entrepreneurship in rural India? Yeah. Okay. So just a quick thought. I mean, I think there's immense talent, creativity, innovation all across India, and especially rural India as well. I think the biggest challenge is giving education and exposure to the folks in rural India. So someone might have a great idea, they might have a great product, a great service, but how do you teach them how to run a business? How do you teach them how to market the product? How do you teach them how to monetize it? How do you teach them how to manage their finances in running a business? How do you give them access to to the expertise in urban India? So I think what is required is some mentorship, some access, some exposure to folks in rural India. One initiative that I am aware of or part of in Mumbai is these Atal incubation centers, where you get in a bunch of entrepreneurs, you give them mentorship, you give them space, you introduce them to other people, you give them a little bit of funding. I do believe that a bunch of these centers in rural India as well, but I think initiatives like this will really help drive entrepreneurship all across the country, especially rural markets as well.
Exposure is one of the biggest challenge, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, the successful entrepreneur, what they can at least do is they can kind of mentor the people, student, and it can actually start from the students itself. So different government schools wherein these exposure is very limited, or the people are, or the kids are not kind of aware, like how to. They might have a product in themselves, they might have some ideas in their mind, but they are not very sure that how it can actually be kind of. That idea can be converted in primarily to the executed, that can be executed. So there, the small little help and small mentorship from people like us would definitely go miles away, I guess so.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, I'm audible, right? Yeah. No, actually I didn't see the questions, but this gentleman who was shadowing me, Mohsin, was after my life. He's standing beside that. Have you seen the questions? Have you seen the questions? So last night, before going to bed, I saw the questions. I jotted down only for this one a few interesting things. You spoke about this Make in India project, but Make in India project not necessarily is addressing the rural India. Now, what is a rural industry? Rural industry is the government new definition. Earlier there was a different definition of Khadi and Village Industry Commission. That has been revised. It says any village which has a population of 20,000 or less, and any industry there which is where 3 crore is invested. That's the sort of thing rural India, that you can consider a rural entrepreneurship. Now, when you talk about rural entrepreneurship, it's primarily the MSMEs. Now, what is MSME? How many number of, that's a small and medium industries. Now, what is the number of MSMEs in India? As we speak, 63 million MSMEs are there. Actually, 6.33 crore. They employ 12 crore people. But unfortunately, out of this 6.33 crore, 94% are micro. So just only one or two guys. So if you are looking about employment, etc., it would not happen. But if you see the actual importance of it, it's 33% of India's GDP. This MSMEs account for 33%, one third of India's GDP it contribute, and by government estimate by 2028, these industries will contribute to at least 1 trillion rupees worth of exports. Now, what are the initiatives beyond this Make in India things happening? I'm just telling you one. One is this. There's something called Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program, SVEP, Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program. That's on. Second is called Cadre Community Resource Person Enterprise Promotion, CRPEP. Third is called Rural Self-Employment Training Institute. That's been there at multiple places. And finally, one more thing, there are many more, I don't want to waste your time. The government and Tata's trust, between them, they have instituted something called Foundation for Development of Rural Value Chain, FDRVC. So the point is, efforts are on, but there are problems. One problem is the skill development. We have a skill development ministry, but a lot of things are happening on paper, but in actual reality, ground reality is very different. Skill is an issue. Skill for everything. What you do, how do you store, how do you market, that skill is not there. And second, of course, financing. Even though our banks talk about they are reaching out, etc., but it's a very repressive financial system we have. Forget rural India, even in urban India, there are people who cannot have access to finance. Right now, banks are very happy to take your deposits, but ask for any credit, you'll find hundreds and thousands of questions. So these are the two important things. One is skill and second in finance. So all this kind of government initiative and this kind of bodies that have been set up, they are fine, but unless we address these two, I'll just take one more minute from my own experience. State Bank of India runs a program called, I think, India Talent Program or something. So my son was picked up 1 year. They give a small stipend and you work in some rural area. So my fellow who actually studied in London School of Economics, he came back and he wanted to have the exposure. So he was sent to Nalbari in Assam. And he was told that you do whatever you want to do. And there in Nalbari, Assam, I also visited a few times during 1 year. We found that the tribal women, they weave their sari, their towel, etc. Everybody has a weaving machine, whatever you call it, charka, in their house, but they do it for themselves, for their family. So a lady will be weaving 3 saris a year, 4 towel or gamcha a year. So what this boy did, he convinced them, why are you doing 3 saris? You are wasting your time. Why don't you make 30 saris? So that's how it happens. So all those guys, all those women who were actually doing saris and gamchas, they did it, they raised the number. Instead of 3, they started doing 20, 30. And then through crowdfunding, he raised some money and did the marketing linkage. And as we speak, at least 37 families of that particular area in Nalbari, which is an insurgency affected. The latest one I'm talking about, I took a visit in January. 37 families, their average monthly income is 7,500 through this, which was nil 5 years back. So what they did not have the skill to market, so they needed the market linkage. They did not have the idea that they could do it, and they did not have also the finance. So once through crowdfunding, you got those guys who will resource it. So they started giving advance, and through the advance, that thing is now being done. So I think we need to have little bit of ideas, innovations, and skill and financing in addition to whatever infrastructure we have. Thank you.
So I wanted to add, sir, what you just mentioned. So I recently started something similar with my mother, which is called as Neeru's Kitchen. So I basically come from a tier 2 city, wherein, a lot of women, very highly illiterate women are there, and they're not financially independent. So it's very difficult for them to start something on their own, or but yes, they are very good with typical papad making, or pickle making. So what my mother did, it was during pandemic. So usually what happens is women from the cities, they actually tier 2 city, they come to Delhi NCR region, they become house helps and everything. But now due to pandemic, most of them actually went back, right? You must have heard about sad stories of migrants. So my mother started an initiative wherein we kind of gave them the platform. She taught them all these things, that how to create a pickle, how to make those papads and everything. And the week actually she gave them platform to sell all these things over the websites. I kind of helped her to get some B2B deals as well, some partnerships with different hotels, so that they kind of get. So currently I think she has around 20 females. She's supporting 20 females who are easily able to make like 10 to 12,000 per month independently. Just as a platform, but I think it's a very small start. But something similar we can start. I think they can make a big difference. It could be in a tier 2 city which you might not consider as rural, but the good part is that they are now trying to bring them more females. I think we need more of a vocational training to these to make rural India more financially independent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for adding to that. Thank you so much. The next question that we would like to proceed with is kind of for the youth that we have in this room and beyond. I wanted to ask about employability. We have 600 million Indians between the age of 18 and 35. But do we have those kind of jobs? There are about 2.5 million graduates and postgraduates who are unemployed. A McKinsey study says that 80% of Indian graduates are unemployable. This is not a fresh study, but there's something which needs to be fixed. So what is that, and how much time do you think will it take to fix things for the graduates here in the country?
I have one statement for this. Why those graduates think that it is the government's responsibility to provide them employment, right? Sometimes why don't they think on the lines of that they can create jobs? So I still remember during my childhood, most of the time my father was always to the fact that be a job creator rather than look for one single job.
Thank you so much. Anybody adding to that?
Yeah, on employability, I have a slightly offbeat and a sort of pessimistic view for the youth. I think we are in the midst of, the biggest labor market change we will see in a lifetime. And I say this because of AI and automation. McKinsey in 2017, they had published a study which said that 400 to 800 million jobs will get impacted just by automation, and AI and ChatGPT and all was not even on the horizon at that point. So I think there's going to be a huge shift. 10 to 15% of jobs will be lost. 30 to 35% of jobs globally, not just in India, are going to be impacted because of AI and automation. The good news is that you can prepare for this, right? Because a lot of the grunt work which we do in office those jobs will disappear because artificial intelligence can do it. How many people over here have used ChatGPT? Raise your hands. Okay, so some, right? I would encourage you all to just go use it. Go use it immediately, because you will know what you're competing against. You're not competing against each other for jobs, right? You're competing against artificial intelligence. So it can do all the grunt work, but what will happen is AI will never replace the people element. So any job which requires a people intervention will do well. So if you're in hospitality, if you are in counseling, if you are coaching someone for fitness, for yoga, if you're counseling people, if you're taking care of children, you're taking care of elders, anything which requires a people interaction will not be replaced by AI. So one thing I would highly encourage everyone is, it is not about as much as what you know and what you study, it is about how you make people feel, right? And how can you influence people? So work on your interpersonal skills as much as you can, because no machine or computer will replace that. So, but I think the future of the job market is going to change dramatically. But either you can get swept by it, or you can prepare for it. That's my personal view. Having used ChatGPT for literally 30 days, but I just see the impact that it can cause.
No, I think your question number 1 and 2 are almost related. So basically job creation. So, do you just say, no, always blame the government that, irrespective of the color of the government, whatever government is there, state and all, that government, if you leave it to the government, I'm not very sure that's fair. I think it's up to us to, there are enough opportunities. And what, if you look at historically, it's IT is one area where we are pretty good, and globally we are supplying, our kids, our nephews, our nieces, our children, they are living for US, Canada, and everywhere, and working on IT and all. If you leave that apart, and some construction workers, which is the lowest end and all, in between there are nothing much is happening. And one of the reasons probably I'll be very unpopular of saying this, I think the education system also. No comment intended for this institution and all. Typically our education system is such, if you compare with the overseas education, then you know the difference. I mean, it's not, there is job orientation is not there. I mean, you leave the education, you studying something, and then you get into a job market, you find that whatever you have learned is of very little use. So that's the thing. It's at the end of the day, I think each of you, whatever 100 or 200 people are sitting there, I think the opportunities are there are many. You have to just keep your eyes and ears open and be innovative and look at it in a different way. If you just want to have a steady job, and like even now I see, I mean, there are of course misdirection, like in West Bengal, the chief minister said that you go and set up momo shops and pani puri shops. That's her idea of job creation. On the pavements you cannot walk, there are momo shops and pani puri shops in Kolkata. But that's not job creation. Job creation has to be in a different way, and I think all of us, you, me, everybody, need to look at it this way, and our education system also needs to take some responsibility.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. The next question goes like, what could be the next steps to ensure increase in gender parity in businesses? The top boardroom tables of the world and India as well still see a significant deficit of women. What can be done about this?
So I think I myself is working with corporate, and I realized that we women ourselves kind of create gender parity, right? So I mean, many of you might differ from this statement, but that is something I have seen personally and faced it. And one of the greatest example I see is that most of the organizations come with programs like diversity and inclusion, and they are like they kind of categorize up specific roles with that they were going to hire only women for that. My role is that why are you doing this? Hire the right set of person, right? In that case, whenever you are hired, people start looking at you with those lenses. They start thinking that okay, she has been hired with diversity and inclusion under that category. They're not sure that they start questioning her talent. So I think we as a women kind of should say no to such kind of campaigns by organizations. That is one of the biggest thing I feel that. Secondly, there are very good programs that organizations are coming with. Like that's again the contrary, something like the Rishi Sparks programs or things like that, wherein they invite the women, because most of the women in India especially, they kind of go for career breaks. So they kind of, these organizations give them opportunity to come and join them after a career break. So these, they are I think they actually help in improving the gender parity. So there are both pros and cons of the different programs, but I think organizations should look more towards creating gender-specific campaigns instead of they should make it gender-neutral campaign. I think that is the biggest thing, that at least basic things that at least corporates can do, from HR from the corporates can do.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Say if you want to create reservation like we do ST and SCs, etc., etc., I don't think that's fair. I think the societal norm, that's the root of it. Prachi would be in a better position being a woman. But if you look at, I don't know about corporate India much, but I am, whatever my financial sector exposure, the first woman who rose from the rank and women top in 90s, most of you are not born there, probably, or many of you, Tarjini Vakil, she became the chairperson of Exim Bank. RBI's history, RBI started now 80 plus. There is not a single RBI governor who is a woman. There are 3 of them, deputy governor, who reaches that. State Bank of India, 250 years plus. There's only one lady who chaired State Bank of India, that is Arundhati. Now, a few years back, you found there are too many women in the financial sector. There were Chanda Kochar, there was Shikha Sharma, etc., etc. There are many, but again you find not too many are there. So primarily the responsibility you find, you speak to them, we found that it's the society as such, the looking after the family is the woman's responsibility. So there are many husband-wife working, but then the wife has to quit when the son is growing up. In my case, when my son got into standard 10, my wife had to quit. Between 2 of us, one person had to quit, and unfortunately the axe fell on her. And many of such things happens and all. So it's women, particularly in banks and other financial sectors, they get into there, but then they get out, they refuse promotion because they don't want to be transferred, because then who will look after their children, etc. So this is more a societal issue, I think. I don't think any reservation can change that X amount. Yes, SEBI can organize, companies law board can say that board must have at least one non-executive director, independent women director. That can be by fatwa, by fiat. But employees, how can you have reservation there? I think women we are responsible. Male members of the family also are responsible. In my case, I would have said, look, you continue to work, I am sitting at home. Do we do this? How many of men do that? So I think we need to approach that more than women are not less qualified than men. Women are not less intelligent than men. I think wherever they are, they have been doing a fabulous job. But it's primarily because of the family issues. In most of the cases, in my personal case, in my entire career, I have seen only one gentleman, a man, who decided to become a house husband. Like we say, homemaker or housewife now become, it sounds like bad, so we call it homemaker. So this gentleman become a homemaker, and his wife is working, she is into filmmaking, etc., etc. And I have not come across a single male person, including me, who has said that, look, my wife is working, I am sitting at home looking after the child. It doesn't happen. So unless we change ourselves, it will continue to be there. I don't think we can depend on government or organizations. I don't know what Prachi would say. She's a better person to.
No, I think the root cause is definitely our mindset, right? And it goes with both. As I think I totally agree with Tamal's view, wherein he mentioned that when it's a choice between a husband and a wife who has to quit, usually we as a wife, we take that instance. Okay, let us quit. So I think this is how we are kind of born and brought up, and this is kind of a mindset, societal mindset. So totally agree. And I think the onus lies in the fact that both of them try together how we can kind of continue and make that impact. That's a basic, yeah.
So I'll just add to that. I completely agree. A lot of women choose to step away or take a break from the workforce. Equally, there are a lot of women who continue to stay on, but they do hit a glass ceiling. And if you look at the Fortune 500 companies, right, globally, only 47 of them are run by women. So that is less than 10%. So 10% of the top 500 companies are run by women. And I'm not just talking about women. If you take any underrepresented minority, right, LGBTQ or any community, they hit a glass ceiling at some point. Now there is one group of people who can really make an impact for anyone who's hitting this glass ceiling. And before that, let me just tell you a quick story, if I may, right? So I studied in the US. I did my undergraduate in the US in University of Rochester. So it's a pretty large university. One of my closest friends went to a very small college in rural USA. Yeah, very small college. Both of us wanted jobs in Wall Street. We desperately wanted to work as bankers in Wall Street, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, wherever. In my college, it was a large college, so all these investment banks would come to interview, or at least some of them would come to interview, you would apply, but very, very difficult to get a summer internship on Wall Street. My friend, on the other hand, he's studying in rural USA. Not too many people know the college. but he's getting interview calls with every major Wall Street bank. So he's going to Goldman Sachs, he's going to Morgan Stanley and getting interview calls. And I was amazed. His name was Sanjay. So I said, Sanjay, how are you getting all these interviews, right? No one even knows your college. And here I am in Rochester, I'm not getting a single interview. What he told me, he said, because I'm from such a small college, anyone who has made it big on Wall Street, any alumni who's gone to Wall Street, they go out of their way to get me an interview, right? So if I approach someone and he's a senior from my college, he will do everything, but he will get me an interview. Now after that, if I get the job or not, that's up to me. But interview my alumni network is going to do. And I think that's the philosophy, that's the philosophy we need, I think in the corporate world as well. So whether you're a underrepresented minority, if you are a woman, if you've broken the glass ceiling, if you can break the glass ceiling for others, right? I think that's a tremendous thing that you can do. Because who better than you to understand what it takes, what are the challenges, how do you break the glass ceiling, how do you get to the top? And I think a lot more can be done. So I saw this question, so I went to the websites of some of the biggest companies run by women, right? So, and unfortunately, and I looked at the leadership teams, and unfortunately the ratio is not too different, right? If 10% of Fortune 500 companies are run by women, if there's a woman as a CEO, her leadership team is still 90% men. And you can go take a look at Citigroup, take a look at GM, take a look at Oracle, all of them run, right, by wonderful, inspiring women, but I think it is still not flowing down enough to the leadership team. So I feel if you are a leader, I think, get more women in, give them leadership positions. The other thing that's happening in the corporate world, HR, head of diversity, head of foundation, head of administration, those are the jobs which are going to women. No one is heading sales, no one is heading Europe, no one is heading Asia, no one is heading marketing. All those jobs are still, the leadership positions are still being held by men. I think that needs to change as well, right? So I think leaders can drive the corporate culture, leaders can drive diversity. You don't just put someone in HR and make it an HR job. It is the job of the leadership. So I think that would be my thing. It has to start from the top and diversity will flow.
I wanted to share a personal incident when you mentioned about leadership. So once, 2 years back, I was a part of leadership team at one of the biggest insurance organization, and they're obviously like any other organization during appraisals. So the 6-7 months maternity time any woman would take, that goes waste, right? So they would consider as a null and void. So my take to that was that, does that mean that the woman is no more competent? If she has been doing something nice, right? So why not you take her appraisal score from the previous 6 months and continue with that? So usually women always had that apprehension that, okay, and there are a lot of conflicts that occur when they plan the babies, because they are worried that the promotion would be stopped and things like. So this is where we are kind of stopping them in my opinion, we are kind of coming in their path to their success in their professional growth. And that is where I was kind of supported by fellow women, and thankfully my HR also supported, and we could, at least the small impact that I could make it was, I could get promoted 2 of my women colleagues during their maternity phase, and they felt very good that because not only they got promotional personal growth, but they also got the professional growth. And I think now this is a small change in the policy that the 6 months tenure of the maternity time would be kind of considered as, okay, the score would not be null and void, but in fact it would be flow from the previous one itself. So you are very right that we have that power. All the leaders have the power, and they can definitely make that difference if they really wanted to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I am left with my final 2 questions, and then we can have the audience asking you what they have in their mind. The next question goes like, Gen Z, which is the younger generation, is now going to be part of the workforce. In every line of work, Gen Z is either already a part of the ecosystem or is entering it now. But we notice that they are not happy with the work culture or the ecosystem that they are in. Who is at fault? Are we seeing an era of change in work culture?
Actually, you hit the nail of it. Particularly in the financial sector, at this point of time, you ask any CEO in private, hand on heart, they will say the biggest problem is the HR problem, not being able to retain people. And when they say retain people, meaning which one? Not the oldies, but the young kids. You call them millennials or even younger than millennial, that new generation Z or Gen. So this generation is very different from our generation. This generation does not care about money. This generation cares about challenge. So the biggest challenge before the HR, particularly in the financial sector, how to retain them. Can you retain them by offering more money? Certainly not. The only way by retaining them is engaging them in tougher assignments and giving them more challenges. That's the biggest thing, because this new generation people, the boys and girls sitting here, you are more assured. You are not in a hurry for jobs. Like in our case, when we are 24, 25-year-old, first thing is this: where do we go? What do we apply? Is it a bank job, or is it something else, or civil service, or whatever it is, or engineering, or whatever, all kind of thing. These days, you look at boys and girls, I mean, even in their early 30s, they don't really absolutely this thing, because they are much more self-assured. Their family background is different, because their fathers and uncles, etc., better off than our fathers and uncles. They are much more ambitious. They are much more confident, and they want to do things on their own. I mean, I know kids who are kids, meaning in their late 20s or early 30s, they quit job without getting a job in hand. Dekha jayega. I can run three months, and they have the confidence of getting another job within 3 months. Now in our case, our mool mantra was there: don't leave a job unless you get another appointment letter in your pocket, because then your value will go down. This generation, your generation, you don't care, because you are much more self-assured. You are very different. You are ambitious, you are self-assured, and you have a different kind of dream. There are many kids who are just working for a few years, and they are leaving and they are trying their own startup. Not everybody is a winner. Out of 10, probably 8 of them are failing, but they are trying it out. They are trying it out, which was not the case earlier. So the glue factor of keeping these people happy is to throw them the right kind of challenge. Money cannot buy them.
I remember my days, right, when way back there were only 2 career options. Either you go for engineering or you go for medical, right? And if you are choosing something different, you are kind of being questioned upon, and especially when you are a female. But the huge difference that I see in Gen Zs is that there are multiple options for them. People, even if you're creative and you feel like you can do both the things, so they don't think twice before kind of choosing anything. They are kind of multitaskers. For them, what is more important is what goes with their heart, right? So they kind of, few folks may call this rebellious, but I think currently there are a lot of exposure is available to them, which wasn't there in our case, especially because of the digital world. And for them, it's like more like a quick money. They don't believe in hustle too much, but they wanted to make sure that, whatever they are doing, they're kind of happy about it. For us, money was kind of, doing a job was kind of earning our means, right? It was never like, helping us kind of being satisfied. And to me, I feel there's a lot that our generation can at least learn from these people. And I think that is the precise reason that most of us are kind of planning us have started more financial plannings rather than what these guys, what maybe would have been doing it before. So so I feel that what we need to do with so much energy with the current generation or the Gen Z is kind of streamline their thoughts, get them into a better so that they could be more productive, and because they are obviously the future of the nation.
No, I agree. I think everything's been covered. It's an incredible generation. I spend a lot of time interviewing youth like you for various assignments, and I think they've said it. I've never seen a more confident generation. You care a lot about social and environmental causes, and you're so comfortable with technology. You're so quick to learn. So I think that's absolutely great. One little trick I'll give you, which will literally make you stand out from the rest of your peers, is simple things, right? I mean, which we take for granted, right? But showing up for an interview on time, sending a thank you note. Just simple things like that will really make you stand out. Because I think that you're a generation which wants instant gratification, right? So you quickly move from one thing to the other. But if you just take a little bit time and do some of the basic stuff, it will be absolutely great for your careers. But it's absolute pleasure for us to work with folks like you. But the energy you bring is absolutely incredible.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering to that. Thank you so much. I'm left with one final question. I would like to keep it very brief. The Indian work model ever since has been karma and action-centric. The Western model, on the other hand, is the hustle culture and a byproduct of Western imperial capitalism. What do we need in India today? And is there an escape from this hustle culture in India? Like, what do we need, or like what should youth go towards?
I think one line that I would say is that what we Indians can learn from the Western work culture is to keep a balance, right? So we, at least in corporate world, in Indian offices, what I have noticed is that we do not keep a work-life balance. We continue, be it here in India or be whenever we even go abroad, we kind of change that work balance for everyone. We kind of set very wrong expectations by working like 24/7. I think that's slightly wrong, because if you see, there are places like Finland, France and Germany, wherein people clearly they are very clear that after 5 p.m. we are not going to work, right? Unless obviously when there are emergencies we do. But I think that's a one thing that in Indian corporates we should learn, that there's always a thin line of balance that we should make sure to have happen between our personal and professional life.
No, I think things are changing. As you rightly said, in US, if you call somebody in the evening of Friday, when this gentleman is having a beer and all, probably Monday he or she will come back to office and put in his or her paper. Because you are not, this your private time, it's an invasion into privacy. I think that's also coming in India. Again, this new generation who is sitting here and all, I think they know how to maintain the work-life balance. There is, unfortunately, again, the large bit of employment comes from public sector here with this state road thing. Culturally, they are very different. I mean, a streak of feudalism works there. I mean, the longer you stay, you think you can make the boss happy. That still continues in the state-run industry, be it banks, be it other industries and all. So the only way to keep boss happy, whether you're efficient, whether you know how to work, nothing, but stay as much as possible. If your cabin lights are on and boss, only after you leave, probably you are not doing anything, you are just watching quietly in silent mode IPL, but lights are on. So boss will go and you see that till 8:30 you are in office, boss will be very happy. And if the boss is upset with you, the only thing to be done is this: boss will stop talking to you. In a high level meeting, etc., you are a part of it, but boss is not looking at you, boss is not talking to you. If you have a blood sugar, your sugar level will go up. If you have pressure, your pressure level will go up. You will stop eating at home. Your wife will ask, what's wrong with you? Boss is not talking to me. Boss is not talking to me. And that will continue. So this culture still remains. In my own, I remember a very senior executive, he invited me in the guest house in Mumbai for a drink one evening. So I was in his room. He was about to uncork a single malt bottle. The bell rang. And then after a few minutes, the caretaker of the guest house just did on our door, tock tock. Our man went up and then he came back. His completely face changed. He looks like a different person. I said, what happened? He said, boss is here. Boss is here. So he couldn't open the bottle. I immediately had to leave. So he became a school kid. He is a senior general manager at that second tier people. But boss is here, so he became a school kid. So that culture still continues in the public sector industry, be it financial sector or non-financial sector. But in the private sector, I think culture changes, and because the so-called new generation, they know their work-life balance, and as I said, they are very different. They know when to work, when to stop, when to eat out, when to go to the beaches, and whatever I want to do. So it's a question of time. It's a question. There's I think one of the, is it Indian newspaper or Financial Times? Now there's a global survey that the girls are not in a hurry to get married. So this is a social models are changing. Like new generation, they don't want to buy a house. They think that instead of locking the money in a house, rather I will be on a rented place. That's better. They don't want to buy a car. Instead of buying a car, you pay a lump sum and you get a car with driver-driven, chauffeur-driven for the entire month. That's not a problem at all. So you don't buy an office space. You buy only the working tables. So things are changing in a dramatic way. It's not only the technology. In every way, our work environment ecosystem is changing, and the new generation people are sitting here who will be in the job market in the next 2 or 3 years or 1 year. I don't know what's your seniority here. Every day it's changing. So I don't think after 2 years you will even discuss this, because you will dictate the terms and the onus will be on the company to keep you happy.
I wanted to share a very interesting incident on this, what sir mentioned, that, boss is not happy. So in one of the organization, I was kind of, I was supposedly a boss, wherein I actually stopped approving the caps. So organization used to provide the caps to whosoever used to stay post 7:30. So I stopped approving the caps for the people who used to kind of wanted to stay beyond 5:30, and it actually came as a question that why do you don't want to. So my simple response to them was that, what exactly were you doing? So obviously I was kind of questioned by my senior that, are you kind of micromanaging? But for me it was like, I never gave them so much work, or I never planned my work in such a way to my team that they have to stay beyond 5. So I really do not know where they're wasting time. So for me, it's like, be at 5, I'm not going to approve the caps. I think this, at least for my team, the small change I could bring in, that people can go home. I'm not sure at least where they're going, but at least they can leave the office before time.
Just to add 1 minute, real life example, like the former MD and CEO of HDFC Bank, which is India's most valued bank, Aditya Puri, would leave office sharp at 5, come what may. And you would think that anybody who is staying in office beyond 5:30, they are inefficient. Because if you can't finish your work by that time, you should not be there. And he will go out for lunch for 1 hour during the afternoon, and he will leave office sharp at 5 o'clock, come to office at 9 o'clock, come what may, whatever it's important there. So that's the ideal work-life balance. For that, you need to be also efficient. Right?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.